All right, this is a continuation, part two. All right, the curse of Ham lie. Let me get back into this information. It says this does not include all so-called black people, which the Talmudic idea subtly implies. I'm right here, as you can see. Let me wish I had a pointer, but kind of midway. It said, as he already been established, one of the group of so-called black people who did not derive from Ham or Canaan is the Negroes. Well, I got it underlined to that. It said if Ham is disqualified, only Japhet and Shem remain as valuable progenitors of so-called Negro. It says, let us first examine Japhet. And Japhet was a so-called black man as well. All right, he was a different stock, but he was of, he had brown flesh. Let's go here. Let's get into this right here. I think I'm right here at the top. It says, so if the Negroes did not derive from Ham or Japhet, Shem is the only possible progenitor. Is it a coincidence that Negroes and Israelites share the same progenitor? Of course not. Those considered to be Negroes and the Israelites have Semitic, which that's another made word, is Shemitic, not Semitic. This new word that they create, like they create new words and add new definition to these words that cause confusion and try to, bug our people out as they are. It says Shemitic origins because those Negroes are the true Israelites, and that's true. Your true biblical nationality, F what the white man say, F what society say, F what you've been taught. You are Hebrew Israelite by nationality. If you're a so-called black, Hispanic, and Native American, and I'm gonna do lessons on the dark-skinned so-called Hispanic, which is not based on your skin tone, but I have to show you this so you can understand. And you have some people among the so-called Mexicans or Hispanics that have different skin tone, but they're Israelites. So we ain't into the skin tone thing. We're going back into the seed. All right. Let me get back in, and I'm gonna do one on the so-called Native Americans, which would be the Seminole Indians, so on and so forth, which would be so-called black people. And a lot of the Native Americans, so-called, had brown to dark flesh. Now they've been lightening up through time, through the so-called white man, right? But again, a lot of them go still be Israelites, even though they got lighter skin. This we got Israelites scattered throughout the whole four corners of the earth, and some Israelites not gonna even look a certain way. All right, they gonna have look like the heathen nations in some cases. Just what it is, them facts. Let me get back into this, not to stray off. Okay, but Shem, the progenitor, is not the only parallel that exists in the sustain this argument. Another parallel is both the Negroes and Israelites are so-called black. It says Israelites mistaken for so-called black Egyptians. There are several instances of Israelites being mistaken for Egyptians in the Bible. Misidentification obviously indicates that the true so-called Egyptians and Israelite have similar skin tone, which that's true. I'm gonna show you that. And I got some precepts right here to support this. Exodus chapter 2, 15 to 19, Moses was mistaken for an Egyptian. In Paul, Acts chapter 21, 37 through 39, Paul was mistaken for an Egyptian, which if you have any kind of sense, you should know how the ancient Egyptians look, not the modern day so-called Egyptians that came in that land. They're not the original inhabitants. Let me get back into this. However, prior to examining the biblical accounts of the Israelites being mistaken for an Egyptian, and Joseph as well, I want to mention that Joseph went into Egypt and was second in command under Pharaoh. All right. And he had to look like the Egyptians because his brothers didn't recognize him. And how was he able to fit in with the Egyptians? It's a lot of stuff you have to ask yourself. You have to have an analytical mind. It says, however, prior to examining the biblical accounts of Israelites being mistaken for Egyptians, it is necessary to touch upon the controversy concerning the color of the Egyptians. Right here. It says, according to the Holy Bible, the father of the ancient Egyptians, Mizraim, Ham's second oldest son, as being already noted, Ham is the progenitor of the so-called African races, which would be the dark-skinned races. It is simply a fact that although Egypt is contemporarily considered to be a part of the Arab, that's another made-up word, Arab world, it rests on the African, so-called African continent, which is true. And before the Arab conquest, Egypt was predominantly inhabited by, well, I think it continues, but let me go here. Let me show you something real quick. 1 second. Okay. Matter of fact, this is why I'm pulling this information out of this book. That's what I was trying to show you in the first part one. It says Elisha J. Israel into Egypt again with ships. Okay. And this is what they gave you in Hollywood. Let me show you how the true Egyptians and the Israelites look. This is in the tomb in Egypt. And you got to think about it like this too. If they're in the sun all day, working, building these, treasure cities for the Pharaoh, how the hell they gonna be so-called white people? So-called white people can't be in the sun for an extended amount of time without them getting severely sunburned. All right, and that can lead to skin cancer. And if you be in the sun, you're gonna turn dark. It's just what it is. Just common sense when you really understand stuff. All right, this is another inside of a tomb, so-called brown flesh people, which would be Israelites, where we descend from, and you have the Egyptians, right, which have brown skin as well. But they are two different races of people, not the same people because they have the same skin tone. That's another ignorant thing our people think too. They think all skin folk is kinfolk. It don't work like that. All right. And you'll see how the Egyptians look. And this is not what they presented to you. This is not what they presented to you in the movies, in the literature, in the books, in TV shows. Is deep. They gave you this as the children of Israel, the Israelites, so-called white people, and they tried to spray tan them in this movie. But you see, these is so-called white people playing this role. Why do they do this? This is an enchantment. They enchant your mind to brainwash you without knowing you're being brainwashed. Because when you see these images, when you see these movies, deep in your psyche, you're gonna look at the Israelites as being so-called white people. That's why a lot of our people are repulsed by the scriptures because they think a so-called white man wrote the Bible, which is complete madness. King James didn't write the Bible. He had it translated into English, and he was a so-called black man. And the lies that they told about him as well. All right, you see this? This was in our people's mind. This is so-called Moses. This is a whitewash, and this movie was produced, funded by the so-called Jewish people to push this white so-called white supremacy, to push this lie of them being the people and how they looked. And this is a painting of Moses. You see him being a so-called black man before they start whitewashing these images. And you see right here. Matter of fact, I need to add some more pictures to my collection so I can show you more pictures. But this would be, I believe, Ramses II. And you see he has our people in subjection. And you see, look at their skin tone, so-called black people, which are Hebrew Israelites, as we descend from, right here. And you go into their movies, you go into their books, they got all this stuff whitewashed, man. Right here. This is King David. The depiction of King David that you see in the bottom. It says ruddy King David and his men, which was so-called black men, brown flesh. That's not what they presented to you. So you got to break that spell that you've been under. This is a 1720 painting of Negro King David King David was a so-called black man, and Solomon. This is a 17th century painting of Paul and Peter. Did not Paul get mistaken for an Egyptian in the book of Acts? So the truth coming out, man. The truth is going to prevail. And this will be a more accurate depiction of Moses. This is not what they gave you. This is not what's presented to you. This is not what's in our people's mind. They got this guy in their mind. All right, him as their Messiah, which his true name is Cesare Borgia, or Caesar Borgia, however you want to say it. This is who this depiction is. You can look at these features, and it's the same person. Look at that. And he was the Pope, if I think of the Pope of Rome's son, I think 6th, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't went over their history in a while. And this is why people think about Moses, all right? And it goes on, so on and so forth. What else I want to show you? Let me get into, let me go back here. Salakia. But yeah, this is pushing all they, propaganda, they media, they school system, they religious institutions. I mean, this thing is covered everywhere and you can't escape it. That's why the only thing that's going to set you free is the truth. That's it. So let's go to this Noah cursed Canaan, not Ham. And he didn't curse Canaan with dark skin, and he didn't curse Ham at all. He said, curse be Canaan. It's the book of Genesis 9 and 23. Matter of fact, let's just start at the top. 22, if you can see it. Let's go to the whole chapter. Salakia. Let me scroll down a little bit. Get through this. This is the book of Genesis 9 and 23. Let me start at 22. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid upon both of their shoulders, and went backward, and covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were backward, and they saw not their father nakedness. 24. And Noah woke from his wine, so he got full. Like sometimes we do. We try not to get like that, but it just, we in his flesh, man. But you gotta really, your brothers and sisters gotta be very careful of that, man. You gotta really watch this. 24. And Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done unto him. 25. And he said, cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. All right. So he didn't curse Ham, he cursed Canaan. And that's it. Simple as that. And that's a cut to this doctrine, the curse of Ham doctrine. Call Hala Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Rakak Wadash. Shalom.